That's it.
Are we there? Thank you for your indulgence. We do have these little mishaps sometime. I'm going to read out the following statement. Anyone is welcome to record this meeting, provided they do not disturb its conduct. More information is available in the agenda. Please note that the Council will be making an audio recording of this meeting for publication on the Council's website. After sunset, the Westgate garden gates are locked, and members of the public should leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Should the fire alarm sound, please leave through the nearest safe exit. The assembly point will be outside the Café des Amis. Thank you. Can I ask, Andrea, have we got any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies this evening from Councillors Simon Worley and Joe House.
Thank you, Andrea. Can I now invite the councillors, Councillor Baldock, Councillor Dixie, Councillor Carnac and Councillor Turnbull, each to make a statement that any declarations of interest by members of their respective groups are declared again by any of those members present at this meeting.
Pleased to do that, Lord Mayor, thank you. Any declarations of interest made by members of the Labour Group are declared again, and those are present at this meeting. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dixie? Thank you, Councillor Dixie. Councillor Carnac?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and the same again for the Conservative Group.
Thank you. And Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Same for the Green Group.
Thank you. And Alfie, any other councillors, have they got any declarations to make at this point? No? Lovely. There are no petitions or questions from the public for the meeting, but I have got some announcements to make. And it's come to the notice that Councillor Mary Jeffries, she was a councillor back in 2002, and I remember her from being mayor because I was councillor in 1999. So I did serve under her that time. And she passed away on the 26th of December. I now like to ask Councillor Michael Dixie if he'd like to say a few words.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Mary was Westgate councillor from 1995 to 2003. And as you'll see from the board up on my left, she was Deputy Lord Mayor in 2000 and 2001. And as Jean has said, Lord Mayor in 2002. Jean was a person of many interests, one of which was the restoration of Dane John Gardens in 1999, to which she gave a great deal of support, both moral and financial. Thank you, Mary, for all you did for Canterbury.
Can I just echo that and say thank you to Michael, and we will remember Lord Mayor Mary Jeffries. I'll now go on to another announcement, and I'm pleased to inform that there will be holding our first civic service at the cathedral, and I'm hoping that all of you will be attending. And it's the 6th of February, 5:30, and the service is open to the public, and our thanks are extended to the Dean of Canterbury and his team for providing this for the city. All councillors should have received their invitations, and I think that was sent out before Christmas. So I'm hoping as many of you will be able to attend. Now we go on to have we got any announcements by the Cabinet members? Councillor Baldock?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A little indulgent for me today, if I may, at this point. Just over 6 months now, we've been in administration, and together during those months, we've benefited a lot from learning, and a lot of learnt stuff as well. So our experience is growing ever more day by day. Thank you for those who helped with that. A special thank you from me and from Michael. It's allowed, I think, to a long-suffering senior management team who have guided us along our coalition's very different paths towards achieving the vision that we were elected to strive and get. I really do mean that. So thank you very much for those as well. So thank you. Really appreciate that. So and I'm sure we pass that on at our next meeting as well. We've got a very robust political coalition of Labour and Liberal Democrats that shares a vision of the future and the determination to achieve it. That ambition to secure a shared, proud, inspirational future for Canterbury City Council residents, wherever they live, be that in the village, Herne Bay, Whitstable or Canterbury. We really do mean all our residents. That shared, proud and inspirational future will be our ambition despite the inheritance of a broken and debt-ridden Conservative administration and more than 13 years of Conservative government that's hell-bent on the destruction of local government and all it stands for. Despite that unenviable legacy, we were not elected to moan, but to achieve change, and we do that every day by working together with our residents, our fellow councillors, and with our officers at every level of the council of which we all serve. So, as 1 year ends and another starts, and from every councillor here, thank you to our residents for trusting us with your council and resting your hope and aspirations with us. We don't take that for granted, none of us. Thank you to the most amazing group of officers any administration could ever hope to have. We sincerely mean that, and every single one of us will endorse that, I'm sure. And for me, to every councillor, thank you for the contribution and commitment that you personally give. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baldock. Have we got any other announcements from the Cabinet members? No? Thank you. Can I now invite Tricia Marshall for any announcements?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm announcing that under Section 91 of the Local Government Act 1972, I've used my delegated powers to appoint temporary councillors to the Women's Wold Parish Council to ensure it is quorate and able to conduct business. The appointees are councillors Mike Soul and Lee Castle, and former councillors Georgina Glover, Valerie Kenny and Pat Todd. They have been appointed initially for 6 months. During that period, it is hoped that new permanent members will be elected or co-opted to that parish council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Dixie's indicated.
Councillor Dixie, you've...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I thank those 4 people on behalf of the council for stepping into the breach, because they've set themselves up for quite a lot of work. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dixie. Did they know they were going to get the job then? Right, thank you very much. Now we're going on to agenda item 5. And can I invite the leader, Councillor Alan Baldock, to propose the recommendation below, and then I can ask the Deputy Leader, Councillor Michael Dixie, to second. So, Councillor Alan Baldock, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. to recommend recommendation 6 November 2023 concerning the draft general fund revenue and capital budgets 24-25 and the financial outlook. That the capital programme for the current year to be amended as shown in Appendix 3. So that's the proposal that I have here, which I seek a seconder for, please.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And we can debate and amend, and then we will go to a recorded vote. So is there anybody that wishes to? No? Then we will go to a recorded vote. Andrea, please. You made the same mistake as me then.
So we're just waiting for everyone to get their cards.
Yeah, forgot my card. Okay. Okay, Andrea?
Yeah, so that vote is carried with 31 in favour, 1 against and 5 abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And now we go to the recommendation of the 4th of December. And I ask Councillor Alan Baldock.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll just be a little bit more detailed on this, if I may. So the recommendation, the 4th of December 2023, concerning the creation of a new public space protection order following a consultation. So there was a little bit of a few typos and stuff in the actual agenda paper, so I'm going to be absolutely clear and read out to you what the wording should be, and then we're if there's any misunderstanding. So the adoption of a new public space protection order, which includes the following activities, I think is an important bit, so we'll get through that through. So someone drinking in public areas causing alarm, harassment or distress. Shouting, swearing or causing other alarm, distress or harassment to others, whether in the area or living nearby. The third one. Okay. You all right? Can you hear now? Okay. Right. Okay. So the adoption of a new public space protection order, which includes the following activities. Someone drinking in public areas causing alarm, harassment or distress. Second one, shouting, swearing or causing other alarm, distress or harassment to others, whether in the area of or living nearby. The third one, no begging. The fourth one, no urinating or defecating in any public space, public place. Number 5, graffitiing, fly posting and other affixing of notices, pictures or signs to property without the owner's permission. The 6th one, the antisocial behaviour of delivery riders. No word, there is riders. That is aggressive driving or riding, dangerous manoeuvres, excessive noise, danger to other road users, including pedestrians, damage or risk of damage to private property, and harassment of individuals from vehicles. Okay, so that is the proposal that I have with you now, which I seek a seconder for.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dixie. And we can now go to debate and amendment. And have we got anybody that? Yes, Councillor Carnac.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just ask a question as a point of order? Are we taking these en bloc or individually? Because they've been taken individually or in small blocks before, and there are issues with some of these. Some of them are okay, but some of them we have some issues with. So we'd prefer it if they could be taken individually and voted on individually. Thank you.
Who should I ask then?
Is that up to Alan?
Alan, is Councillor Baldock, would you like them to be individually or en bloc?
Okay. I prefer them to be on block at this moment after the debate, but is it legally allowed to break them up?
Yes?
We can do that. We can do that. Obviously, the consequences of taking any of them out have other implications, which we would need to do. So I think what I'll do is I would try for a vote first, and if not, we'd break it up and we'd vote individually. Is that acceptable?
Vote first? No.
Or
No.
We can take the whole lot as a vote. If that vote fails, we can do it then, can we? Or do you have to take it on individually?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. You want to debate first?
Yeah?
Yeah?
Vote first, yeah, and then if that's not going, we go through one at a time. That would work, wouldn't it? Let's do that. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, we do that. Thanks. Thanks. Yeah, agree with that. Yeah. We're happy with that?
Sorry, Lord Mayor.
Sorry,
if
we can't
there's-
hear, I can't hear what you're saying, Alex. You have to speak to me and make it clear.
Can someone please? I'm having trouble hearing this debate.
I was going to suggest we could have the debate and then perhaps, Rachel, you could propose an amendment to take them individually, and if that stands or fails, we could then vote individually. But if the amendment falls, then we take them en bloc.
Yes? Yeah? Is that acceptable? Is that acceptable? That's fine. So we'll start with the debate first. Anybody wants to debate number 1? No. Debate number 2? Debate number 3? Yes, Councillor Carter.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Can I just ask if I have, am I allowed to speak again then on another one, or do I need to speak now on, that's fine. Right, okay, yeah, I'm speaking to people, still have some question marks over no begging. I understand the issues, having spoken to other members about why this particular order would be wanted, but we still have quite large concerns that it could be misdirected, and that that we know sometimes that some of our enforcement officers have been rather overzealous when people have dropped bits of litter or have been accused of dropping bits of litter. And it's just very difficult to know sometimes why someone is begging. And I think there's a little bit of an issue here where we have really good teams going out helping homeless people and rust sleepers and going and talking to them on the streets and working with them. And then on the other hand, we might have enforcement officers out fining them for begging. And also, how do we define begging? So we have a bit of an issue on this one and don't like it. It sounds just very Victorian to me, and I think we live in a different time and age, and rather than using enforcement against people who are seen to be begging, we should be using other systems to help those people, however they come to be begging on the street, or to be taking different action through the police, whether that's modern day slavery, and those people are being led to run businesses in some way or other. I just think that this is a bit of a blunt instrument. Thank you.
Have we got anybody else that wishes to come in on the item number 3?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Basically, I quite agree. I think the definition of begging could be a problem. You know, is a bowl out in front of someone outside McDonald's begging? You know, it's the nuances. No begging sounds great, but when is begging begging and when is not? You know, someone sitting there with their dog on a string looking pitiful, is that begging? I don't know. So I do have a problem with this one. I understand the need or the reasoning for it, but I am concerned that Canterbury is the centre of the Church of England, and this could look pretty draconian, to be frank. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dan Smith?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Sorry, bad leg. Yeah, just I agree with the clarification on the definition of begging, but I think there is a legal definition of begging, so I wonder if that could perhaps be inserted to clarify that point, and perhaps if there is access to that it could be read out or summarised for the purposes of that, to see if it is acceptable to the Conservative group here. Thank you.
We'll go through that.
We'll allow everyone to speak once on each item.
I've just taken some advice, and we're going to allow people to speak once on each item. So, if anybody wishes to speak on, Councillor Dixie, you wish to speak on item 3?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think we all have reservations about this, number 3. Would it help if we put the word aggressive in, no aggressive begging, because somebody sitting with a bowl and on the pavement with their dog and a bowl is not really, I think, what this is aimed at. And incidentally, the housing charity, the homeless charities do not support begging, because I think that's a very important thing. But so if we talk about aggressive begging, I think, to me, that would make this acceptable. As it stands, I must say, I have my doubts. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
You would, Councillor Dixie, you would have to put an amendment in if you wanted to add aggressive, and then we would have to vote on that.
Could I propose that the word aggressive is put in front of the word begging?
But you'd have to have a seconder as well. You second it, Dan?
So now it's about people debating on this
So-
amendment.
So now we're going to debate on the new amendment, which says aggressive begging. And I'm going to ask Councillor Pip Hazelton to come in.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not quite sure whether this is the right moment for me to speak about this, but when I've been out with the outreach workers from Catching Lives, I have been persuaded that organised begging brings people into the city centre before 8 o'clock in the morning when I've been out on early morning rounds, and that it acts as a deterrent to the organised groups, where the towns that do have the PSPOs against begging in place, and that's about the exploitation of individuals, and whether that's the right moment in this debate to make the point or not. But I've been persuaded by those outreach workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hazelton. I've got Councillor David Thomas. You want to?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was just going to look in at the 1 and 2, and Councillor Dixie's proposal basically is 1 and 2. So do we take 3 out?
No. Number 3 is an added word of aggressive begging. So that will be debated, and then we will vote on it, whether we accept that added word. Connie, did you want to? Councillor Nolan, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I'm grateful to Councillor Hazelton for making the point that these public space orders don't come out of the blue. It follows on from the previous public space public order. The important thing is, and I do take the point, we are in the city, which has Canterbury Cathedral, which has often attracted people. But there is a big difference between giving alms and begging. And we are all free to give the modern form of alms, donations, to Catching Lives, to Porchlight, to the Baptist Hub and to the Military Road, which we know will go to providing a warm space and hot food and help for people who are in need. What we need to be careful about is to make sure that we don't attract the international gangs, the criminal gangs that we know exist and will sweep through with people who are possibly, I don't know, in modern slavery or whatever, that's another thing. But what we need to be sure about is the difference between giving out of the goodness of our hearts and feeding criminal gangs that will send people in. Now, Canterbury has a very good system where begging is not tolerated where it's aggressive. And I'd like to, if my colleague doesn't mind, I'd like to give the example of one of our young councillors who was going through the streets of Canterbury one evening and was approached and asked for money. And he said, as we all do, I haven't got any change or whatever. And the person said to him, there's an ATM over there, you can walk over and get that. And that is precisely the behaviour that our street patrols are telling us we need to be very careful about. So the thing that we need to make sure is that when we say no begging, we give clear guidelines to those officers that are going to enforce it. We also know that this is a delegated power from the police as well. We have the opportunity to say no begging and it's enforced by the council. What we mustn't do is confuse between the generosity of our hearts in giving money to people who are vulnerable and feeding the addictions and so forth of people who really need help rather than being given money. I am a councillor who regularly comes to the city centre, and I can say I'm 5'0" and I'm quite happy walking around the streets, and I would like them to continue to be like that.
Thank you very much. Can I just remind that we are now dealing with the amendment, which is whether we should have the word aggressive under item number 3. So that says no aggressive begging, and that's the debate at the moment. I'm going to bring in Jan for some clarification and guidance. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Chair. A lot of these issues were very carefully considered when we were drafting the PSPO, and the legal advice was to keep it very simple, because if you have aggressive, what's your definition of aggressive? Whereas if you keep it to very simple, no begging, that can be assessed by the enforcement officers at the time when they see anything that they consider inappropriate. So that's why we advise to keep it really simple with no begging. Otherwise you're into semantics and it's quite difficult.
I've now got Councillor Dave Thomas. David? You okay? Councillor Mel Dawkins and then Paul Prentice.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick point. If we were going to add aggressive begging, then we kind of need to add aggressive begging or organised begging, because, you know, that's the moment you start adding lots of stuff, there's going to be even more that we have to add. And I would suggest if we have aggressive, we need to have and or organised begging as well.
Oh.
I don't know if anyone thoughts on it.
Yeah, yeah. Councillor Alex Ricketts, and then...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm I think I'm on the record as not being a fan of PSPOs in general. I believe I spoke up for Councillor Stockley's right to barbecue sausages on the beach in a previous council. I will never forget your sausage, Ian. I was convinced of this, and there is quite a lot of detail in the officers' reports behind this and the debate that we had at Cabinet. I think, David Thomas, you were in the public gallery for that Cabinet discussion. I may be wrong. You usually seem to be. I said at Cabinet that I hope this is the last PSPO that I have to vote on, because I don't think PSPOs in general are a very good idea, and I think a lot of the points that Councillor Carnac and Councillor Stockley have already made are very good. That are we duplicating law that already exists? What convinced me, and I think the points have been spoken to by Councillor Nolan, Councillor Hazelton, as they have in the past, is this is something that's been asked for by council enforcement officers at the moment, and working with the other organisations that deal with homelessness and some of the antisocial behaviour in the city. We do have a massive problem at the moment with antisocial behaviour around the city centre, and all of the organisations trying to deal with it are crying out for help. This isn't a case of bringing something new in, this is a case of refreshing and actually removing some things that were in previous PSPOs and previous orders. It's something that those officers and those organisations have asked for to continue to do their work, to help them to do the work. And in the absence of this, and it has been very carefully drafted, as Jan said, and the wording, I think, is as it is for a reason. In the absence of this PSPO, we would leave them without certain powers that allow them to tackle very real problems that happen at the moment. So I really want us to have a debate going forward in this council about how we can do those things, but we can't do it in the absence of something that allows them to be on the streets tomorrow tackling these issues. And that is why I think this PSPO as it is needs to go through. Then we can have the debate about what we replace it with in the future. So I'll be voting for the whole thing en bloc. I'm not entirely sure where we are with the amendments at the moment, but I'm sure the Lord Mayor will guide us. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got Councillor Dane Buckman wishes to speak on the amendment.
Yes, thank you.
And then Paul Prentice.
It was really about the word aggressive, and I agree that it's really hard to define. And in the other number 1 and 2, you've already said harassment anyway. So aggressive is sort of harassment. And I think after Councillor Nolan said about organised, so I would actually prefer the word no organised begging, and also no organised begging around ATMs or begging around ATMs, because they seem to be the two main issues, not begging as such for the people who are actually on their last chance, as it were. So that's, I would rather have the amendment of no organised begging. Thank you.
So I have to ask him if he wants to make a motion. Do you wish?
We've got to vote on this
Yeah.
amendment first, and then
Yeah.
people can make different amendments. Yeah.
So I've got Councillor Paul Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just reflecting on this amendment a little bit more, and I chaired the Overview and Scrutiny Committee where we considered these issues some weeks back. The point about aggressive begging, I don't think was gone into in as much detail as perhaps we're doing tonight. Having reflected on the amendment, I won't support the amendment because I think it's actually already covered in the wording that we already have. The whole idea of organised begging, aggressive begging, harassment, I think is covered by begging overall, and I understand and listen to the officer's advice on this. So I won't be able to support the amendment, and I think the wording as it stands is the right wording. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that was
Charlotte? Councillor Stockley.
Councillor Stockley and then Councillor Charlotte Cornell?
Oh, we spoke.
Thank you, Lord
Oh,
Mayor.
sorry, you've already spoken.
Not on the amendment, I haven't.
We have.
Take advice.
Did I?
Yeah, you spoke at the beginning. Yeah,
Not on the amendment, no.
Sorry, you have spoken.
I stand corrected, Lord Mayor.
Yeah. So we've got
Charlotte's called.
Councillor Charlotte Cornell and then Councillor Alistair Brady.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
I won't be voting for the amendment to add in aggressive. I think it adds extra layers of interpretation and perspective as to how that could be defined. Equally, begging is not legally defined in law. I agree. I'm not going to support that point either, because I don't want to criminalise asking for help, and I don't believe you can define organised or aggression. I think it only muddies this even further. Anyone who listened to the cabinet meeting where we discussed this knows that I'm not a fan of PSPOs at all. I don't like creating law that can't be enforced, and I don't like creating law that when we ask for legal advice, we're not sure it can be enforced until we test it. That's not good enough for me. The base standard should be we know it's a legal entity, and we know it is enforceable. I couldn't be assured of those at either of the meetings ONS that I came to and listened to, and in the cabinet where I spoke again against all the elements here, because I don't believe they hold legal weight. Begging, as I said, is not defined in law. Aggression is not defined in law. When is someone delivering? When is someone collecting? Is there a legal definition of alarm? No, for me, it's not good enough. And absolutely, I appreciate that people feel alarm and distress, but what people feel is not necessarily what truly is, and I won't make a law of that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've now got Councillor Alistair Brady.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Listening to everybody, I think we all agree that when individuals need help, especially in a cathedral city, we should be a city and we should have residents that understand that somebody does need help. I'm looking at, I think we disagree. I think we agree that the wording is challenging. I've written down intimidating and or coercive begging, and I think everybody would agree that intimidating begging and or coercive we're against. But if people need a hand up and a help, we are for that. So it is quite confusing. I think with the amendment on aggressive, that's also subjective and it leaves more questions than answers. Would there be a possibility to amend that amendment to intimidating and or coercive, but if there are objections to that wording of the same type as aggressive, then I understand there may be some issues and problems. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
We need to go through one amendment at the time and take a vote, but I've got Councillor Old.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I note that there was an interesting and lengthy consultation on the Vagrancy Act, which resulted in the Vagrancy Act being repealed. But there is in place the 2014 Anti-Social Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act, which is very helpful in this circumstance, in that it does define the difference between begging and antisocial behaviour. And it says begging of itself is not an offence, but begging with antisocial behaviour may be. So the key phrase seems to be begging with antisocial behaviour, and that would mirror what's in place within the Act. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll return to Councillor Dixie and then Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Having heard what Jan said and also what colleagues have said, I'm happy to withdraw my amendment, but I think it has been a useful debate, and so thank you for the debate.
So is there be no vote because he's withdrawn his amendment?
So we've withdrawn that amendment, so we won't be voting on that amendment. But there are other amendments people have put forward.
So he's withdrawn that. Does anyone else want to put?
Is anybody else putting an amendment in at this time that we will debate on, or we will keep to no begging, as is what? So, Councillor Old.
Could I propose an amendment that the amendment says antisocial behaviour and begging, rather than just begging itself? Begging with antisocial behaviour.
We can debate that on the wording will be no begging and antisocial behaviour. With antisocial behaviour. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Brady. Okay, and now we will debate that amendment. Does anybody want to speak on that amendment? Councillor Dan Smith.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I think it's very, I mean, when our officers are out there, it may actually be quite hard again to define the difference. So I think the point was made earlier about it being legally easy to handle, this particular PSPO. So, I mean, I would ask that perhaps on that amendment, if it was made passive or active, where a passive person, someone who has a sign on the street saying, help me, I'm hungry, tired, but isn't actually doing anything other than that, is a passive beggar in a sense, and somebody who's going out and actively asking for money in some way, shape or form is an active one. So I don't know if that would perhaps be helpful in terms of defining, because you're actually allowing some room on the antisocial side, related to the point made by my colleague Councillor Old, to assist officers to approach that point or to act in somebody that is approaching that point in their behaviour pattern by intimidating the citizens of Canterbury or surrounding area. Thank you.
Can I just, for clarification, we are now discussing the amendment which was proposed and seconded, and it is no begging with antisocial behaviour. Anybody want to speak on that? Elizabeth Carr-Ellis.
Yeah, I would just like to say, with all these semantics about whether it's aggressive or antisocial behaviour, what's the difference between aggressive and antisocial behaviour? The fact that we cannot pin down what exactly part of begging we're opposing, to me means that they should just be straight away rejected. We cannot say what sort of begging we are for or against. As some of you know, I'm from Newcastle. I've often had girls come up to me on a night out in Newcastle because they've lost their bus fare and ask for bus fare. Is that begging? Will they be subject to a PSPO for that? And I have to agree with Councillor Cornell. I'm quite worried about a lot of these PSPOs because I think I would be in danger with a lot of them. I'm going to start swearing in Spanish in future when I'm out with my husband because I could run foul of a lot of these. So yeah, I'm very against them. And I think the fact that we cannot trigger down what part of begging we don't want, to me means that this is completely irrelevant.
Councillor Carnac, do you want to?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yeah, I'd sort of make the point that we already have in PSPOs and in law antisocial behaviour. I think the point is that it's the whole issue of no begging is what we're looking at. I think trying to then categorise it in some way, if you're behaving in an antisocial way, whatever you're doing, whether you're dancing in the street or begging or eating chips or whatever you're doing, if you're doing it in an antisocial way, the police can take action against you. I don't think we need to be drilling into this with all these different bits in these PSPOs. I think it's just, we're just doing too much, really. And we had this before with the coastal PSPO, where really we just had antisocial behaviour and all the other 10 related to that one thing. And I think you can just keep digging too deep, basically. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull, and we're discussing the amendment, no begging with antisocial behaviour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, as others are saying, I'm not sure that this amendment particularly adds anything and certainly doesn't seem to be clarifying anything. And I agree with what people are saying. And going back to what Councillor Thomas said, really the first two, certainly the second one that we've got there, it is about any cause, any way, any cause of distress or harassment to others. And that does seem to cover really what we're talking about. And trying to actually pinpoint begging really isn't getting us anywhere. So I'm not convinced that we really need it, to be honest. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. We've got Councillor Harry Mackenzie.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. A while ago, I have to confess, I haven't got the freshest memory on this, but a while ago I did a bit of research on antisocial behaviour, And actually, when it was first created by the government in the 2000s, it was created purposefully with a very vague definition so that it could be applied to many things, anything it needed to be applied to. And that, to me, just means this is still very vague. And I'm afraid I have to agree with some of my colleagues here that we cannot criminalise people who need help. And unfortunately, I can't support this PSPO that would criminalise people who are seeking support in our city. Sorry.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to do Councillor Mike Soul? Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We currently have a PSPO for begging, and that's for persistent begging. And it says here, persistent begging involves begging on more than one occasion and includes all passive and active methods used to receive alms. Well, I think we need to simplify it, and I support the proposal here just for begging on the basis that that's what our homeless charities are saying is needed in our city. If we vote tonight to water down or remove our PSPOs on begging, then that's sending the message beggars are welcome into our city. I believe there is support out there for those who are currently begging. There is support from the homeless charities and other forms of support. And it's not for us to say, yes, you can beg here, beggars welcome. I think that sends completely the wrong message. So I don't support the amendment, and actually I support things exactly as we're laying down here, just to put a PSPO in to stop begging.
Thank you. Councillor David Thomas.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. It's gone round and round in circles. I'm just clarifying that we're actually, once we finish this debate, we're going to come back to the debate on no begging debate. Yes? And I just want to make sure, when I spoke, I was speaking on the amendment at first. So when it comes back, am I still allowed to speak on the last part?
You're speaking now on the second amendment.
You're now speaking on the second amendment.
Yeah, I get that. I'm just clarifying. I'm just making sure to clear in my head. And when it comes back, it's got us now. When we finish this debate and we voted on this debate, then
That's
we come
right.
back to another debate. We're back on the no begging debate. And I
that's
can
right.
still speak on that. Yes.
That's right.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Yeah, we will take a vote shortly on this amendment. So, Councillor Ian Stockley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, again. I can't support this amendment. I think it's too woolly. I think picking up on Councillor Hazelton's point that we could have aggressive gangs moving in, I think by punishing the people actually on the street, presumably these PSPOs are going to be levying fines, and we will then be criminalising people who are obviously not in a great place, trying to pay a fine which they can't pay. So, what happens then? So I really can't follow the logic of trying to prosecute people who have no money and are begging on the streets. I understand why we're trying to achieve this, but I think it's just beyond the pale, to be frank. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak on the amendment? And if I remind you, the amendment is no begging with antisocial behaviour. No, then we need to go to the vote on...
Sorry, did the proposer of the amendment or
Ah, yes, sorry. Councillor Old, you need to come back on your amendment.
I think it's helpful.
You have to stand up, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think, having been a Vice Chair of Catching Lives, I share what Councillor Hazelton has said and others have commented on, that there is a need to recognise the concerns of some of the homeless charities about begging and the effect that has, particularly when it's in organised groups. So I do think there is a need for something in a PSPO, if we're going to have PSPOs, that relates to begging. There's no legal definition of begging, but there is a definition of begging with antisocial behaviour. And if we could have that, that's going to mirror what's in the current legislation, then I think that might be helpful. But I leave it to fellow councillors to decide.
Thank you, Councillor Old. Councillor Baldock, did you want to come back as the proposer of it? Not the proposer, the initial one.
I'm actually quite happy to listen to this debate tonight. And I do get it, and like Councillor Ricketts, I'm not the person that would put PSPOs in the first place. It's not in my DNA. But we are where we are. And I say take these couple of words now. We're looking at getting this PSPO through as a building block for work that's going to happen in the city centre later on, and we've got a lot of work to do. I do understand the concerns, and also understand the concerns of nailing them down, and also understand that whatever we do with this PSPO, there needs to be some incredibly strict guidance that our enforcement teams will follow, and there'll be no things, and that worries me. So the debate that I'm listening to tonight, I take away from it. From my point of view, I believe that PSPO, as it stands on paper today, with just the word begging, allows that enforcement team to put together their definition that we will have to work to. And I'm also, like the other councillors, very minded to feel that the charities that work with the people that are on the street mainly need to be listened to. And they took the time to talk to us about it, and we need to listen to their concerns. So I want you honest and free vote on this amendment, and then we go back to talking about through the rest of the PSPO, if that's okay, Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take a vote on the amendment, which is no begging with antisocial behaviour.
So that vote has fallen with 8 voting in favour, 26 voting against and 3 abstentions.
Yeah. So because of that vote, the wording stays as it is, no begging. And now we need to talk on the substantive motion, which is back to no begging, which is what Councillor David Thomas. Yep. And Councillor Michael Sole.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As I previously said, I'm very concerned that we might not have a PSPO that deals with begging. So I'd like to propose another amendment, I'm afraid. and I'd like to propose that we stick with exactly what we've got at the moment. It's a PSPO that was passed by the previous administration, so I'd hope they would support that. And it deals with persistent begging. And as I read it out earlier, I won't read it again unless anybody wants me to, but it's just to keep exactly what we've got at the moment, a PSPO that stops persistent begging, and it defines exactly what persistent is. If anyone would second that.
We've got Councillor Cornell that seconded it. So we now need to debate that you says persistent begging. Councillor Alan Ricketts. Alex, sorry.
I've been called worse and may well be again by the end of this evening. Yeah, I think I did make the point earlier on that there is already a PSPO in place, and I think that there are a lot of papers behind this. There has been a consultation, and a lot of the measures in this the public are broadly in support of, which is something that we need to bear in mind this evening when we're debating it. Something that I've had to go through, as I say, coming from the position of not wanting to vote for a PSPO at all, that there is a lot of background to this and a huge amount of work has gone into the wording of it. I think Mike's amendment is a good idea. It returns us to the position we're in at the moment and gets rid of the worry that we're not going to leave enforcement teams. And we're not talking about police officers here a lot of the time with this. What we are looking at, and part of the issue with the aggressive begging thing is we do have organised gangs coming into Canterbury at the moment. This is what we've heard. Obviously, we want to protect those people on the streets who are asking for help. but we do have organised gangs coming in. And if you set a term of law and a position, and this is about a small area, relatively small area of the city as well, it's about moving that problem on from a small area. If you set really detailed ideas of what they can and can't do, then they will read that and they will make sure that the people that they're bringing in comply with that. And actually the people that we're trying to protect won't read it and won't know it and will fall foul of it. This is designed to address a very specific problem. And again, a PSPO is a very, very bad implement to address a very specific problem, but it is all the teams on the street have at the moment. This is simply about renewing it, and I think returning it to the position we're in at the moment allows them to carry on their work. And again, I think that we all need to work together across the council to find something to replace this, to deal with the antisocial behaviour problem. But in the meantime, I would urge you not to withdraw the powers that the teams currently have and have asked to be renewed in order to deal with the problems that they will be dealing with on the streets tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Have we got anybody else want to speak to the amendment, which is persistent begging? Councillor Carnac and then Councillor David Thomas.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. And it's not just persistent begging. I think Councillor Sol, when he read that out, there's actually a bit more to this in the existing PSPO. And I agree with Councillor Ricketts that the concern I've really had with the just no begging is this idea that enforcement officers, freelance enforcement officers could be out there. We know what's happened across the whole district in recent times, people taking their dogs for walks innocently, people just dropping a bit of litter that they didn't mean to drop, and they've been hounded, absolutely hounded. And that has been absolute concern with that wording there, that it's just too easy for somebody to say that another person was begging. I think persistent begging, it puts the onus on organised gangs who are using people to beg on the streets. I would also ask that those people who are begging are often in modern slavery and living in absolutely awful situations. And I think we need to remember that, and our onus should be on catching those gangs and preventing those gangs from operating, not for us to be penalising the person who's put there to sit on the street. And the fact that they're busting in the mornings, those people don't have a choice over what's happening to them. So I think this is hopefully one way that we can deal with this. I still agree with others that I don't like PSPOs particularly, and I think there's enough in the law already, but I'm more than happy at this point, as long as we accept that this will all be revisited ASAP, that to keep the teams working, we retain the existing wording. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor David Thomas.
I'm not sure if this is the point I need to bring this up, but I think if I don't, I'm going to forget the question. My question really is a legal one. Are we able to give a fine or prosecute someone that actually hasn't got an address? I don't know whether you can or you can't. And if we've already got, I don't know whether this PSO, the ones we've got consistently, is running out. Hence, we have to put the word in persistent begging back in as we had previously. And if it's already there, then we don't need to vote on this amendment or this one. It's a new one. So, but does the old one run out? Because I'm asking this.
I'm going to ask
Okay.
the Officer Jan Geiler to come in.
Thank you.
Yes, you wouldn't mind just bearing with me. I think the other one is expiring shortly. I'm just trying to find the date for you. When the meeting begins.
Never find it when you want it.
That's about right. I think there was a gap. Just trying to find it. Yes, it did expire in November 23.
Yeah,
It has
so it's
just expired.
expired November 23.
So this is to create a new one.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And the question about whether they've got a legal abode?
Did you hear the question, Jan? Councillor Thomas has asked about a legal abode.
If someone
No, hasn't got a fixed address.
Apologies, I've got that one. It would be difficult. If we can trace them, we can. If we can't, then that would be difficult.
So what we could do is prosecute someone that doesn't have an address and it just doesn't go anywhere anyway. So once someone's aggressive that doesn't have an address, they can be aggressive and can't get prosecuted. It's going round and round. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Right. So we're now going to take the vote on Councillor Connie Nolan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm very grateful to Councillor Sol for pointing out the wording that was in the previous PSPO. I think it's really important that, as other councillors have said, that we take the advice of the people that work with people who are vulnerable. I'm very happy for the wording to be as it was before. I think that's very useful. And I also actually have welcomed the debate that we've had in overview and scrutiny in Cabinet and tonight, because I think it's important that we examine everything that we do and we don't blindly go forward with something that we had before. And so I will, vote in favour of this amendment that Councillor Sol has put forward.
Thank you, Councillor Nolan. Councillor Chris Cornell?
I was just going to summarise a second. Just to clarify on Councillor Carnack's point, the wording would be persistently begs. Persistently begging involves begging on more than one occasion and includes all passive and active methods used to receive alms. I think it's a better amendment because it doesn't criminalise the purpose of asking for help, but it focuses essentially on a problem which we've identified with organised gangs. To take up Councillor Thomas's issue, there is a point with anyone providing fake addresses, but there's also an issue with someone who works in homelessness services of people with fixed addresses begging, and often a PSPO is a useful way to create some type of intervention to support people out of street behaviour when they've moved to a more fixed abode and an alternative situation. I think the issue here is that whilst this relates to Canterbury, in my own patch, I know that there are organised gangs. I can tell you where they drop off. I can tell you where the people are, and I can show you the faces. And persistent begging solves a business model, which is essentially if you can't put the same people out on the street, you have to rotate around a wider geographic area, and essentially it just doesn't really work. So persistent is a useful addition because it specifically focuses on a problem of a business model behind organised begging, but doesn't create a situation similar to what Councillor Carr Ellis was talking about, which is essentially asking for help. I'd encourage you to support the amendment.
Thank you.
So now back to Councillor Sol.
So Councillor Mike Sol to sum up, and then Councillor Alan Baldock.
I think you said enough, Lord Mayor. I won't add anything else.
Thank you. Councillor Baldock?
Yeah, likewise to me. I think, again, I'd love you all to, you've heard the debate, vote honestly and vote with your heart. Thank you.
Right, so now we're going to take the amendment, which is no persistent begging. So we're going to vote on that. So are you ready, Andrea?
Sorry, Councillor Thomas.
Sorry?
Because Councillor Cornell added some more words. Are we using, is that coming in? Or is
No,
that,
it's
okay.
no. As originally said, no persistent begging. So that will be.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. No, it's to put it exactly as it already is, which does define persistent.
So can you read it out what it exactly is so Andrea will know?
Can I ask Councillor Cornell to read it out? He has it in front of him.
So the phrasing is persistently begs.
Persistently begging involves begging on more than one occasion and includes all passive and active methods used to receive alms. That's the existing definition.
So we're voting on that amendment, which is the existing and wording. Thank you. So we all know what we're voting on. Okay, please vote.
So that vote is carried with 33 in favour, 2 against and 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much. That was a very, very good debate, and I think it was very worthwhile. Thank you. Anybody else now want to speak on that item number 3, no begging? No? Thank you. So we'll now go to number 4. Anybody wants to speak on number 4? No. No. Number 5. No. No. Number 6. Councillor Bland.
Yes, I hate to point out the obvious, but there are problems in the wording of number 6, similar to the no begging debate that we've just had. And the problems are fairly straightforward and simple. Now, I'm not suggesting that we oppose this, because there are reasons for thinking that some delivery drivers do indeed, of their own volition, behave in a reckless and crazy manner. But I did point this out at the scrutiny committee as well. And I said, actually, we need to look at the motivations of delivery drivers when they're delivering in this kind of manner within the city centre. And some of those motivations in this case don't refer to organised crime, although some people might want to suggest that. They actually relate to the organisation for whom they're working. And the organisation for whom they're working, i.e. the delivery companies, are either asking their drivers to undertake a delivery time which is absolutely impossible in a way that makes it safe for the public as well as anybody else. And they also have a punishment. If you don't get your delivery done in this impossible time, you will have your pay docked. Now, this is a motivation that I did raise at the scrutiny committee, and there's nothing, I feel there's very little that's been done around dealing with that. And now I do actually think there is reason to think that delivery drivers do actually behave in a reckless manner, and therefore there is a need for this, and we can see that on our streets. But I also equally think that Deliveroo and all the other companies are asking impossible things. And the question really is, what is the council going to do in respect of requiring those companies to abide by the safe times that this council believes exist for safe delivery of takeaway food? I understand that there's an effort to actually say there be particular safe spaces in the city centre for parking and stuff like that. I understand that's one thing. But the same thing applies. If the time from pickup to delivery at the house is impossibly short, the helter-skelter running from the pickup point to your vehicle, whatever it is, whether it's a scooter, bicycle, electric bike or whatever, is only going to increase reckless behaviour too. So we need to do more, in my view, and I'd like some reassurances that the council will do more about making sure that the delivery companies themselves actually understand that the crazy times they expect some delivery drivers to abide by are just not good enough, especially if they're docking pay from those workers.
Thank you, Councillor Bland. Anybody else? Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, we did have quite a long discussion about this at scrutiny, and the issue really was that highlighting delivery drivers in particular in terms of aggressive riding and driving, dangerous manoeuvres, etc. I mean, it sort of implies that if you're not a delivery driver and you're okay to cycle in a dangerous manner or to travel around in a dangerous manner, which obviously is not what we mean at all. There was some suggestion that it was discriminatory just to put delivery drivers in specifically, and that it wasn't. It wasn't something that we would really want to have out as a statement from us, that we particularly want to highlight delivery drivers causing an issue. It could be anybody who is on an electric bike, electric scooter or moped driving through the city centre in a dangerous manner or any manner when you're not supposed to. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Prentice. Councillor Carnac.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Again, obviously this is something that was discussed at a review and scrutiny in recent weeks. And I think I do support this number 6. My issue, I think I've raised this informally as well, is that we do need to discuss riders more generally, not just delivery riders, because there are potential points of conflict between, you know, a very heavily pedestrianised, heavy footfall area and anyone on a bike that more often than not is powered by quite a powerful electric motor these days, and not just ones that you buy in your local bike store, but ones that have been modified, sometimes not particularly safely either. So that is probably a separate issue here, actually. But I will be voting for this, but I don't want that point about riders more generally to be lost. We do have to pass it, I think, because of the nature of the city centre, the geography, and the street pattern of the city centre, which means we can't let this one slip. We can't not address the issue. But I do want to reference Councillor Bland's contribution around the pressure that our delivery riders are under, and I am reassured by what I've heard from Councillor Nolan as the cabinet member responsible about how we do support our delivery riders. And with those assurances, I feel like, you know, this is something I can support and be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Carnac.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't like this one at all. I voted against it at overview and scrutiny, and I'm very minded, unless I can hear a very good argument, to vote against it again. I think it's not part of an original PSPO for Canterbury. I think it's been a very knee-jerk reaction, and there are all sorts of failings within it. But some of them have been mentioned already this evening. I mean, part of it is, how do we know that someone's a delivery driver or not a delivery driver? I think Councillor Cornell made the point just earlier. Are you not a delivery driver when you're cycling up the high street to get to your place of business? But are you a delivery driver when you've picked up the pizza? I mean, I just think there are too many things in this that are too just unworkable. Again, I'd like to know how we enforce this. And again, I think Councillor Bland makes good points that actually in this we're penalising the worker, the individual, when they're actually working to very tight times, and customers who expect them to have their pizza delivered very quickly. And there are also other, you know, we go back, it's antisocial behaviour again. How are we defining antisocial behaviour? I know there are things there like excessive noise, but I don't know, is that blasting a horn on your bike, or is that singing or whistling while you're on your bike? I've no idea what that means. I just don't like anything that is taking action against people going out to do an honest day's work, hopefully, and also against small business. Anybody who's self-employed and in small business, I don't like it. That's just my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ian Stockley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Basically, Councillor Carnac has covered most of what I wanted to say. You know, we came back from Vietnam, from where we've been for a month, and everything, and I mean everything, is delivered on a moped. whether that's furniture, televisions, beds, you know, you see it all. But they don't seem to run over anybody, and it doesn't seem to be a problem. So obviously the problem is deeper than, I suspect, the mopeds on the street. It's the time pressure. It's the fact they're being deducted wages. I understand the reasoning, but as has been said, when is a delivery driver, and when is he not, he or she not? You know, I don't feel comfortable with this. We're one step away from banning white dogs from the city centre, in my view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dan Smith?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I think to Councillor Stockley and Councillor Carnack's point, that what they've said is largely I agree with, but the difference, I think, is that this is intending to target the business model, and the business model is what is causing the problem. They don't have my colleagues up there, the speed and the time that they've got to deliver these things is what is dangerous to the other residents and visitors to get to the city and to our district. So I personally, whilst I don't like it for many of the reasons already given, think it's a step in the right direction to give us some kind of pressure on that business model, and then it may need refining to see how well it does that over time. And over a fairly short time. I think these don't last forever, these PSPOs, as we've said, this one is replacing a time expiring one. Perhaps this debate, if we pass it, should be revisited to re-examine it and re-examine the effect in the future. But it is that business model that we're trying to sort out, not the individuals concerned. And the only resource we've got, the club, to hit the business model is the people that are actually there doing it. And that's what this is trying to do. So I would support it on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So along with Councillor Dixie, I am the ward councillor for Westgate Ward, which covers the High Street. So we are most closely aware of the issues, and I live within the ward, and I cross that High Street day in, day out, evening, daytime, or throughout the year. And it is an issue, and it's not, I do appreciate people's concerns about it. But what I would say to Councillor Carnack, this is not a knee-jerk reaction. This was first raised by Councillor Dixie and Councillor Jill Gower before the pandemic. This was already an issue then. Obviously, with the pandemic and the rise in deliveries that hasn't gone away, has only continued to grow, it has become more and more of an issue. And I do see it daily, I encounter it daily. And what I would say is that I do appreciate the issue about, workers and the gig economy and that I'm not comfortable with, but that's not the point of this PSPO. I would liken it to, my dad was in the Merchant Navy, and, the rule of the sea is that I think, power gives way to sail and sail gives way to whatever. And the point is, it's a pedestrianised high street, and it's pedestrians who are the ultimate victims of the dangerous driving. I use hearing aids. People come up behind you. You've got no idea that they're coming. They swerve in and out. And I appreciate there are all sorts of reasons and pressures why that may happen. But the most vulnerable people on our street are our pedestrians, and they are often the oldest and frailest members of society. And that's what this is designed to address. I do absolutely accept that it may not be effective in practice, but we do not know. And I think it's the right time to try to introduce it. And to say that it's like knee-jerk and that we're responding to, a temporary glitch in behaviour. It is persistent, and it has been growing and continues to grow. And I think we have, as a council, tried to engage with the companies, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, etc., and that this is designed to be part of a whole package.
of measures to address this. And unless we pass it, you know, and I do hope that we will pass it and that we will be able to see, you know, that visitors, residents, all pedestrians on the high street will be better protected as a result. Thank you.
Thank you, Pip. Well said.
Thank you, Councillor Hazelton. Councillor Naomi Smith.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I also was on an overview and scrutiny when we discussed this in some detail and depth. One of the things that Councillor Smith has brought up is that we could revisit this. It was strongly suggested that we wouldn't revisit PSPOs because they run a cycle. So I want to sort of clarify that that once it's here, it's here. I'm also not a fan of PSPOs. I have been brutalised by the coastal one because I can't have a glass of wine, a fire and a catapult on the beach. You know, so it's my main problem with this one is that we are only targeting delivery riders. And who is a delivery rider? How do we ascertain what a delivery rider is? Because without a definition, I could have my bike and my Uber gear and all my stickers on me, and if you ask me if I'm a delivery rider, I'll go, no, I'm not. And you can't, you know, it becomes one of those difficult ones to enforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor David Thomas.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's following in, I listened to scrutiny, I was here. I listened to cabinet, I was here. The big debate, what was coming out of the conversation, wasn't the fact that we want to bring in this kind of restrictions for delivery drivers. It was the fact we want to bring it in for everyone. So if you're a cyclist and you're going to work in Tesco's or wherever you want to work into Canterbury, and you're driving on an electric scooter or an electric push bike or whatever, and you're driving erratically, you'll be stopped. This is one part of the community that it's geared to, and this is the issue that was come out in the debate and hasn't really moved forward. And it's almost like something was missing on the paperwork and the proposal, and for it to go back to proposal will take another 2 years, and we haven't got that timescale. So it's a little bit of a miss opportunity, because realistically, if I was a delivery driver picking up my meal from McDonald's, if I'm driving to McDonald's, I've got no food on board. So if you wanted to prosecute me for riding my push bike to McDonald's, you can't, because I'm riding my push bike. As soon as I've got a load in the back of the van, or back of the push bike or whatever, I then become working. And this is the problem. So it's an opportunity missed, and it's purely on the wording, and that's what seems to come round. If that could have been amended, I don't know if I can propose an amendment at this stage, I really don't. That's fine. At the end of the day, that's what the big issue was. We are penalising one part of the people, and as I say, if I've got nothing in the back of my van, I'm not a delivery driver. I'm going home. So, where do we stand with this? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Elizabeth Carr-Ellis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. My problem with this is I regularly go down the high street at 8 o'clock in the morning on my way to work. I have been nearly hit by so many vans reversing as they make deliveries. I've seen school children nearly be hit. It's not just the riders. If we could extend this, I would be all for it. I would close off the high street completely whenever there's people around, because I have seen more dangerous driving from drivers in white vans and in brewery deliveries than I have from the Deliveroo and the Uber people. I know there's a problem with the Deliveroo and the Uber people. I hate electric bikes because you can't hear them and they shove up behind you, and then suddenly there's a bell going and you jump sky high. But I also hate the people at 8 o'clock in the morning who are reversing down the high street before I've even had my second cup of coffee, and I can't even remember my name, let alone to take care for the streets of these. And as I say, there's a lot of school children out at the time. I wish this was further, and I wish we could just close off the high street completely to traffic throughout decent hours when people are around. This is my problem with it. It's not just the riders. And I think we do them a disservice by saying they are the main problems when they're not. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robin Franklin.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I too was also at the Overview and Scrutiny Committee substituting for Councillor Flanagan, and I will reiterate what I said there. I think the PSPO can not only be a service for members of the public, but also for the delivery drivers themselves. I have seen on 2 occasions now where mid-drive delivery drivers have been abused by random people of the public, and I think it's down to the frustration that people feel of potentially being hit by themselves by delivery drivers. On about 5 occasions, I reckon, maybe even more than that, I have nearly been hit by a delivery driver, either due to me having my headphones in, so not being aware of my surroundings, or just coming around one of the corners, such as Sainsbury's, for example, and then all of a sudden seeing a bike heading my way. So I think this PSPO can protect delivery drivers from being harmed by members of the public. I think it protects members of the public from delivery drivers, and it's about, again, making this pedestrian zone safe for pedestrians. And I think that's the way we should be looking at this. And currently, I do agree with some of the councillors who have said all bikes, but I think based on where the public attention is right now and what we got on the table, we should vote for this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte, did you have your... Yep.
Thank you. It's been a really interesting debate tonight. I mean, I'm not changing my position from what how I expressed myself at Cabinet. I believe that all the points, the bullet points under item 6 are already covered by law. Dangerous driving covers 1, 2 and 4. Criminal damage covers 5 and antisocial behaviour covers 3 and 6. I don't feel the need to double make law. I do appreciate that our police and our traffic enforcement authorities have been drastically underfunded in recent years. And of course, should there have been a much more generous funding package for those 2 levels of authority, we might not be in the position of having to make or even having this discussion tonight. But I echo points many of my colleagues across the chamber of all political parties have made. Who is a delivery driver? Are we effectively endorsing stop and search of vehicles to check that people are delivery drivers? That opens a whole new can of worms of discomfort for me. The last 2 Just Eats I had delivered to the Canterbury City Council offices were in unmarked motorcycles. You couldn't tell if they were delivering or not until you stopped someone and asked them to open their vehicle. I'm not going to vote for legislation that encourages our enforcement officers to do that. I do think it's a bit discriminatory. As Councillor Carr-Ellis said, I would far rather there were a sweeping bullet point that encompassed all riders, or perhaps all the dangerous riding of motorcycles, cars, vans, mopeds and other passenger-carrying vehicles. That would be far less discriminatory in my view. And again, I reiterate the fact that we wouldn't be having this discussion if it hadn't been for the erosion of funding for those much-needed authorities in the first place.
Thank you. Councillor Dane Buckman.
Yeah, thank you. I think it all just comes down to the very start of the consultation period that it only had delivery drivers or delivery riders. And if we'd had all sorts of electric vehicles and motor transport, it would have made it a lot easier to accept. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day who's got a guide dog. This isn't going to stop her getting hit by an electric vehicle. It might stop her getting hit by a delivery vehicle or something like that. But it just does it. It's again this way. It's too specific, and it should be all electric because it's just too specific. And it should have been a consultation. I understand from the overview that you would need a new consultation to then include all the other vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you. Have I got anybody else that wants to? Councillor Connie Nolan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to remind councillors that we have an existing traffic regulation order already in place for the High Street, which restricts vehicles from being within the pedestrianised area of the city centre between 10:30 and 1600 hours, unless they have specific exemption. And this is enforced by the bollards. As Councillor Hazelton has already said, this hasn't come out of the blue. This has been something which people have been asking us for some time. The bollards do not stop people on bikes, and that's the problem. It is my belief that had this been addressed at the time that it first appeared as a problem, when it was first being brought up, and I well remember being in this council chamber when Councillor Dixie and Councillor Jill Gower brought up time and time again the problems that residents were bringing to them. So it's not a knee-jerk thing at all. This has not come out of the blue. We do have problems, and we need to work to go forward with it. What will this public order do? It will enable the council to have meaningful discussions. Those discussions have already started. We are having, as Councillor Bland has already said, we are having designating stopping areas. Now, these stopping areas are in consultation with the companies. We talk about Deliveroo, we talk about Uber Eats, but actually it is the restaurants in the city that want their food to go to various places. And we do support small businesses and large businesses. We are working with them. And I think it's really important that we say the consultation took place. We could argue about the wording now. We weren't in power at the time, but the people, the residents of Canterbury, have said to us that they want such an order to be made. I know from my discussions with council officers that engagement and education is always the watchword with all of these enforcement orders, that it's about having the ability to talk in meaningful conversations with, yes, the companies, but also with the delivery drivers themselves. The delivery drivers need support, and we can give them support to make sure that they are aware of where they can go and when they can't go. So, as I say, we have an existing traffic regulation order which restricts vehicles between 10:30 a.m. and 1600 hours, and it's really important that we make sure that that isn't something which is not observed. How can we have enforcement officers saying to aggressive cyclists, of whether they're a delivery rider or not, please dismount, which is the regulation at the moment, if we're not engaged in conversation with those who make their living through the gig economy, and we need to take on board their particular needs. So yes, we need to target the business model, but that's a bigger thing that this council can perhaps have a motion at the next council about talking with Uber Eats, talking with Deliveroo about the timings. But what we can do is we can change things locally. And as I say, this has come from residents. This hasn't come out of the blue.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to remind councillors of what the public thought about this consultation. This item out of all the PSPOs was the one that generated the most interest. And 82.7% of people who took part in that consultation agreed that this PSPO should be there. We have consultations for a reason, and in the past, councils have been criticised for not taking the views of people into account who take part in those consultations. This is a resounding support for this from the public, and that's why I think we should be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Sol. Now I go back to Rachel, Councillor Carnac, and you proposed an amendment to say what individually or en bloc.
Yeah.
So are you putting an amendment in now?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. I'd like to put an amendment that we vote on these individually, and I need a seconder.
Councillor Ian Stockley.
Councillor Ian Stockley, seconded. So we are now voting on this amendment that says that we will do them each individually from 1 to 6, or we will vote en bloc. So do you all know what you're voting on? If Andrea? Right. So the amendment was that we vote on each individual. If you agree with that, then you vote for. If you don't agree, you vote against. Is that correct, Rachel Carnac? Thank you.
It's about voting individually
Yeah.
rather than voting en bloc.
Yeah. So it's whether you want to vote individually.
Shall I?
Yeah. I'll ask.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to expand on that a bit. So a vote for would mean that you would then, so this isn't about voting for or against these specific proposals.
No.
A vote for would be saying that you want to vote on each of the 6 items individually, because at the moment you'll be voting en bloc. So you would be having one vote that would cover all 6 proposals. So Councillor Carnac is proposing that you have an individual vote on each of the 6 items. So voting for would be having individual votes. Voting against would be sticking with the current proposal, which is you vote en bloc for all 6 in one vote. So hopefully that's clear, but if not, please say.
Can I ask, are you all clear on that? So we will now go to the vote. I can't see it.
So you've got plus, minus, and X.
So that has fallen with 12 votes in favour, 24 against and 1 abstention.
Now we vote
So
on
vote on block with the amended wording for number 3.
Yeah. So now we're going to vote en bloc with the amended wording on 3, which is what Councillor Cornell read out previously. So now we're going to vote en bloc. Okay? Thank you. Short break.
Request for short break.
Councillor Moses, are you going to vote? Sorry. Sorry.
Oh, you rotter.
Everybody voted?
That was a crucial vote, that was. Yes.
So that vote has passed with 19 in favour, 9 against and 9 abstaining.
Thank you very, very much. I think that was a worthwhile debate. And I'm now going to request that we have a short break, a comfort break, and then we'll continue. Thank you. All get back at 10:02 at the latest.
Oh, well done.
I thought we were going to have a straightforward evening.
I told you. everyone. We'll all get back to our seats now. Thank you. Now, what are we on now then? So,
Bit of order, please.
thank you, everyone. Just waiting for Pip. Hang on, you're okay. All right, everyone. Thank you. I'm just going to ask now and invite, we're on item number 6. So I'm going to invite Councillor James Flanagan and Chair of the General Purposes Committee to propose the 2 recommendations below. And then I'll ask Councillor Alistair Brady, who's the Vice Chair of the committee, to second them. So please, James Flanagan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I would like to move the recommendation made by the General Purposes Committee at its meeting on the 13th of December, that namely 6A on tonight's agenda, Community Governance Review in the unparished area of Whitstable. I've been asked to read out the 4 points, so here goes. The recommendation is 1, that a Community Governance Review be conducted in accordance with the Local Government and Public Involvement in Health Act 2007, and the timetable in terms of reference set out in the appendices to the report be approved. 2, that the Head of Corporate Governance, in consultation with the Head of Paid Service, be authorised to take all necessary steps in relation to the review. 3, that a task and finish advisory group be appointed to consider the review and make recommendations to the Council, comprising 7 councillors, 3 Labour, 2 Liberal Democrat, 1 Conservative, 1 Green Party. And 4, consideration to be given to a 3rd meeting venue to ensure that the priorities of residents in different parts of Whitstable be taken into account. On point 4, Lord Mayor, I've been advised that that has been accepted by officers and that a 3rd public meeting will take place as part of the process. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak? Yes, Councillor Carnac.
Me every time, doesn't it? Yeah, I'd like to ask for a change, an amendment on number 3, for the task and finish group, so that it's politically balanced. It's not politically balanced at the moment, so that it would add 2 Conservative members to that task and finish group and actually be 8. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Have we got anybody wanted to say anything about that?
Sorry, it needs to be seconded.
Has it been seconded? Yes. So Councillor Rob Jones has seconded it. Anybody else wanted to speak on the amendment? Councillor Turnbull? No. So I think on consent it's been agreed that there will be 2 members from the Conservative group. Okay? Thank you. So, any more debates on 1 till 4? Then we'll take 6B as a separate item. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just wanted to say that I'm very pleased for the group who've worked so hard to get this here today, and I'm looking forward to it working closely with local people and for everybody to get their chance to have a say on this matter. And I hope that the council will be, putting in many efforts to make sure that it is communicated as widely as possible, so we can get as much engagement as possible from the people of Whitstable on this matter. So, yeah, looking forward to this being taken forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Turnbull. Anybody else? Councillor Allen Baldock?
Yeah, thank you. And totally, I'm very happy that we've got here democratically, and that's fine. But I would actually just add that, of course, people from across the district are very welcome to comment, not just people of Whitstable. Very much. So that's just a point there to be absolutely clear. Okay, it's for everybody's consultation, everyone's interest. Thank you.
I think we need some clarification on that.
Yes, just to clarify,
Matthew?
it's a public consultation. So the people as part of that consultation, we will be noting where the people who are commenting are from, and that can all be considered as part of the consultation response.
So is everybody clear on that?
Dan Smith.
Councillor Dan Smith.
Yeah, much, Lord Mayor. I'd just like to say this looks great to me, and look forward to when the same similar happens to Herne Bay area. Thank you.
Thank you. If no more debate, then we'll go to the vote.
Sorry, does James want?
Oh, sorry.
James come back?
Did you want to come?
No.
No, it's just no, just to the vote. Yeah. Right.
And that vote's
Have you taken
unanimously.
the photo, Bernadette?
Unanimous in favour.
It's unanimous, so have you got your photo, Bernadette? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. You can stay if you wish, but otherwise you can go. Thank you.
Now 6B.
Now we're on 6B, which is Councillor Flanagan.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move the recommendation made by General Purposes Committee at its meeting on 13th of December, which is 6B, Polling District Review. 1, that the changes to polling districts and places as set out in Section 4 of the report be agreed, and that 2, that subject to incorporating the changes in one above, that the Council agree the polling districts and places set out in Appendix 2. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second that, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Have we got anybody that wishes to speak? No, then we will go to the vote, Andrea.
And that is also carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flanagan and Councillor Alistair Brady. Now we come to item 7, and to consider the report from the Director of Corporate Services and the Service Director for Finance and Procurement. And can I invite Councillor Allen Baldock to propose, and then Councillor
Yes, so,
Dixie.
well, thank you. Okay, so to consider the report of the Director of Corporate Services and Service Director's Financial Procedures, the Lord, to propose and second, and ask Councillor Michael Dixie to do that, so that the Council, 1, determine that for the financial year 2024-25, the empty homes discount for properties unoccupied and unfurnished, that's Class C properties, remained at 0%. so that the council tax will be payable in full on these properties. Second point, approve the District Council's tax base 24-25 as 53,348.27, and the tax base for the towns and parishes of the council's administration area as set out in table appendix 2, which you have in your papers. Item 3 determines that the long-term empty property empty premium for properties that have been left empty and substantially unfurnished for a period of 1 year but less than 5 years, a long-term empty premium be charged at 100%. Second point, for periods of 5 years but less than 10 years, a long-term empty premium will be 200%. And for periods of 10 years or more, the long-term empty premium will be charged at 300%. Point number 4, formally approve the discontinuation of the council tax Class D discount for properties undergoing structural alterations and or major repairs effective from the 1st of April 24. Item number 5, formally approves that the CTRS as set out in this report effective from the 1st of April 2024. Point number 6, formally approve the application of the 100% council tax premium on properties empty for 1 year but less than 5 years, applicable from the 1st of April 2024 in line with the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act of 2023. And last item, on item 7, formally approves the application of the 100% council tax premium on properties that are unoccupied and unfurnished, often referred to as the second homes, as Class B properties, applicable from the 1st of April 2025 in line with the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act 23. So that's those proposals that would be voted on. And obviously you're able to debate that now after Councillor Dixie has seconded for me, please.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. I'm going to open it now up for debate. Have we anybody that wishes to speak on this item? I can't see anybody, so we will go to a recorded vote. Andrea?
And that is carried with 36 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you, Andrea. And we now move on to item 8, which is the councillors' questions. There are 4 questions for the meeting, and we all know there's an overall time limit of 30 minutes for all councillors' questions, but seeing there's only 4, I'm sure we will get them all in. Each questioner will have 1 minute to put their question, and 3 minutes is allowed for the response. Each questioner will also be allowed to ask 1 supplementary question, which the responder to the original question may answer. No other contribution is allowed. And the first question we have, it's from Councillor Keith Bothwell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As a preface to my question, I would like to say that in my experience, this council's officers are always helpful, considerate and highly competent. In the months since I was elected, I have been most impressed by their capabilities and professionalism. However, I do feel that I'm sometimes working in the dark because I do not have a measure of the staff who work here. I'm not aware of the full range of talents employed by Canterbury City Council. Wanting to know more about the council's capabilities and skills, I have requested previously to see a list of staff with their respective roles, etc., but this has not been forthcoming. The response given is that this is not yet available because staff are leaving and arriving, and that therefore the staff list is not up to date. However, this will always be the case. There will never be a complete and accurate list of staff in any organisation of this size. My question is, will a staff list, including respective departments, roles and responsibilities, be made available to councillors at any stage soon?
Thank you, Councillor Bothwell. Can I invite Councillor Mike Sole as Cabinet Member for Finance to make his response?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you very much for the question. Can I first start by endorsing your comments about the capabilities and professionalism of our staff? They are a credit to the organisation. I'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge how staff at every level have adapted to the new administration, its priorities and ethos, and the challenges that a change of so many councillors brings. I sympathise with this question. As councillors, we receive emails from residents on hundreds of different issues, and there are hundreds of council officers with thousands of responsibilities between them. Knowing how to get information and swiftly resolve issues is essential. You'll be aware, all councillors should be aware, that officers provided all councillors with a comprehensive guide to services as part of the induction programme. For the benefit of those listening online at home, I'm holding up a copy of the programme. The guide provides details of the services provided and explains how to raise issues. Councillors are encouraged to use the dedicated email addresses as shown on the cover of the guide, which is closely monitored by our teams to ensure correspondence is tracked, monitored and responded to as quickly as possible in order to help our residents. As a reminder, there is a dedicated email for waste issues and everything Canenco related, and another for service issues, which includes housing. Dedicated rather than individual email addresses increase resilience, and every part of the team is willing to help. As you mentioned in the question, a large organisation where staff changes, and there are often short or long-term absences, and responsibilities and role change from time to time, any staff directory would be out of date on the day it was published. The current approach negates the need for a comprehensive staff directory and ensures queries are routed appropriately. If you wish to know any more about the roles performed by the officers within any particular department, then the service directors and heads of service are always available and willing to talk to you and any councillors. And within the Guide to Services document, there is a detailed list of the responsibilities of all the senior staff. If councillors ever experience any issues with receiving prompt replies when using a dedicated email address, please let me know. Finally, I have requested that a reminder of those service email addresses and the link to the Guide to Services is sent out again to councillors as soon as possible.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Bothwell?
Yes, Lord Mayor. I guess my supplementary question is, presumably there will not be a staff list published for councillors.
That is correct. There will not be an additional published directory of the kind you are talking of.
Thank you. Can I now ask Councillor Rachel Carnack to put first question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Yes, I would like to ask if the land for the revised layout for the A2 slip road at Wincheap, which includes the park and ride, has been transferred to KCC, and is this administration committed to delivering the new off-slip and any changes that may be required to the park and ride? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now ask Councillor Alex Ricketts, Cabinet Member for Tourism Movement and Rural Development, to make the response?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Carnack. I have a long answer and a short answer, and as is my tradition, I'll give the long answer. As you know, committee resolved to transfer the land to KCC and to Highways England in 2017, and that's included parts of the Wincheap Park and Ride, and delegated authority was given to council officers to make minor changes to that as it would happen. That scheme in 2017 was withdrawn after Highways England found some problems with it, mostly the design of the off-slip. So the answer is no, the land has not been transferred. The second part of your question as to whether we remain committed to it, the current local plan and the current draft local plan both contain an A2 off-slip. I don't want to second guess the work of the local plan working group, but should that also contain an A2 off-slip, which I think is very likely, then obviously the council will be committed to delivering that. There are several plans that have been submitted, and this is where it gets slightly complicated in that Canterbury City Council has two roles here. Is one, we are the planning authority that has to agree any of those plans, and one, we're also the landowner. And those are two very separate decisions. In terms of being the planning authority, then that will be taken by the planning committee if it goes to committee, or by officers if it's done on delegated powers in the normal run of planning process. In terms of the land transfer, then should planning permission be agreed, then the council will have to consider what land will be transferred, what impact that will have, particularly in terms of park and ride spaces, and that will then have to come back to councillors to consider again in terms of the land disposal. So we would probably go back through that same process we went through in 2017. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Carnac?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Ricketts, because this has reappeared in the press recently with a lot of speculation, causes a lot of angst to many people, and we know we went through it in the last administration. So I'd like to ask for commitment that we will very seriously look at any requests for use of the park and ride and implications that that might have for the River Stour. Thank you.
Obviously, we'll very seriously look at them. That's probably something to for a planning decision, which I don't want to prejudge, and also for the local plan working group. I think it's very unlikely that we would consider anything that would include building on water meadows, which I think was a previous one. But again, can't necessarily prejudge that. But I think that all of those considerations will be taken into account, and particularly from looking at my portfolio, the park and ride is a very important pillar of the transport policy. So we would obviously make sure that before we disposed of any land or made any of those decisions, all of those considerations are taken into account. But of course, an AT slip is likely to remain a very important option. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I now invite Councillor Robert Jones to put his question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Our windmill in Hernham Broomfield, excuse me, which is several hundred years old, is under threat of being sold off as Kent County Council look to give up ownership and therefore responsibility of it, along with the rest of the mills in Kent. Can I ask our council heritage team if they will work with the friends of the mill in whatever way possible to ensure we keep and maintain our very important heritage asset? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Charlotte Cornell, Cabinet Member for Heritage, Open Space, Waste and Recycling, to respond?
Thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely right. The great, yawning, deep, chasmic financial pit that Kent County Council found themselves in mean that the windmills, along with the youth services and indeed County Hall itself, are being sold off by KCC to raise funds to try and fill those coffers. The Friends of Herne Mill have nominated the mill as an asset of community value. This is now being considered by our officers here at Canterbury City Council, and as of the 18th of December, Herne Mill is listed as an asset of community value. This is a way of community groups protecting assets from being sold. So if the owner does decide to sell, Kent County Council, they have to notify us, and we would then notify local organisations. If a community interest group or a charity puts in an expression of interest, the sale has to pause for 6 months to give it time to raise the money to acquire the asset. As you know, Kent County Council is currently consulting on the proposal to sell 8 windmills across the county, and the consultation, if people wish to express strong feelings either way, closes on the 26th of January. Of course, as the council member, the cabinet member for heritage, I would give full support to a community group that wish to preserve the mill, you know, a key part of our economic heritage, a key learning visit, a key marker, a key geographical marker. I'd be very interested to meet with the group, and I hope that you might set up that initial meeting for me so we can progress this further.
Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's not really a question to say thank you, and the question I was going to ask, you've just already asked me it, and the answer was yes, I will set up a meeting. Thank you. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Councillor Joe Howes isn't here, so I've asked Councillor Rachel Carnac to put the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lord Mayor, for allowing this. Councillor Joe Howes is unwell and unable to be here this evening, but he writes that he has been contacted by many residents in his ward who currently opt into the garden waste service but are now considering opting out due to the change in payment methods. He wants to ask for an explanation of how those unwilling to make card payments for security reasons will be able to pay. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Charlotte Cornell, please.
Thank you very much. The council has always provided alternative payment methods for the garden waste service for those unwilling or unable to use card payments or those without internet access. And these options are unaffected by the move away from direct debits to card payments. We will still facilitate other methods. To discuss the alternative payment options, residents can call the bins and waste team on 01227 947 860. But, of course, to be clearer, because that was fast and garbled, we will make sure that in all future communications to our subscribers, those alternative methods are clearly stated, that number is there, that we make it much more accessible, what they are, how they might access those. It was discussed very well at overview and scrutiny, and again by Cabinet, where we were reassured by the team that those methods would be available and would continue to be available in the years to come. As you know, we're moving away from direct debits because so many were cancelled or changed that we just, in the end, felt that it was a more secure, viable way to guarantee the income to provide the service to move to card. That doesn't mean that cash and cheque and other forms of payment will disappear. They won't, they'll still be there.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Cornell. And I'm very pleased to hear that. Can I also ask that in addition to sending out that information in letters to residents, that we also put it out in other communications as well, so that that number is more widely known, because I'm already getting comments myself. I'm sure we all are, and also I'm seeing it on social media now as well. So I think as much comms as possible would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. We are undergoing a whole comms review strategy about, regarding sort of waste and recycling, and absolutely putting that prominent alternate payments really clearly on the website when we upgrade and update will be, you know, front and centre. We appreciate lots of our residents get confused. I'm sure as councillors we all have fielded email inquiries about these alternative methods, and it's important that we all very much clearly push the message back. Of course other methods are available. I'll make sure that all councillors get emailed that phone number and just a quick bullet point list of the other forms that will be accepted in the next week or so.
Thank you. That's all the questions that we have. So we go on to item number 9, and it's 9A, the homeless and temporary accommodation. Unfortunately, as we know, Councillor Joe House is unable to be here, so I've asked that Rachel Carnac will propose, and Councillor Robert Jones has agreed to second. So please.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Yes, as I said, unfortunately, Councillor Howes is unable to be here this evening. I know we've all had a very long evening already, and since, rather disappointingly, but I understand the reasons because I have sat on the other side, that these motions are both going straight to Cabinet. I won't read any of that motion because this is actually something, as we know, very close to Councillor Howe's own heart, and this is an area of his expertise. So we'll leave that. I will leave it as printed in the papers, in the agenda, and it's going to Cabinet, as I say. I know the leader will now speak, which is disappointing. We won't have the debate, but we will bring it back in some forum or other when Councillor Howes is well enough to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you second?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now, can I invite Alan Baldock, Councillor Alan Baldock, if he wants to reply?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I actually won't reply myself. I'm going to ask my Cabinet lead for housing to do that, and we do take housing exceptionally seriously, you read it, because that's why we have a Cabinet member for housing. So nobody's better qualified than me, so I'd ask Councillor Hazelton to respond to you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and I'm sorry to hear that Councillor Howes isn't well. I just wanted to. I'm assuming that everybody has read Councillor Howes' motion, so I'm going to address some of the points quite briefly this evening. So, whilst the government increase to the local housing allowance is welcome, it's a long overdue restoration, and it continues to restrict the range and quality of the housing that's available to rent. And the additional money for homelessness nationally is a drop in the ocean, as I saw Joe, as previous portfolio holder, is well aware. He talks about the data of the shockingly high number of households in temporary accommodation across the country, and it is one of national shame that has worsened significantly over the 13 years of this Conservative government. And the sooner a general election is called and the electorate are finally given the opportunity to choose a Prime Minister and a government that cares, the better. Joe is right. I fully appreciate the extremely challenging circumstances left us as a legacy of the previous your administration. Turning now to address your numbered points. Point 1, the draft local plan is due to go out for public consultation in March this year and will aim to ensure there is sufficient provision of housing for the future. Additionally, the draft corporate plan is currently out for consultation, and the provision of affordable and good quality housing underpins the Sustainable Development Goal themes articulated in that document. Not much more to go. Points 2 and 3. The position on use of caravan parks is complicated, as there's a distinction between residential and non-residential parks. Different rules and licensing arrangements apply. As a council, we do not use non-licensed parks for temporary accommodation. Regarding points 4 and 5, the Older People's Working Group is still underway and will report back in due course. The call for a working group or councillor workshop on tackling homelessness and temporary accommodation is an interesting one and will need to be considered alongside the timetable for reviewing our housing, homelessness and rough sleeping strategy that's due to take place this year. And in conclusion, I want to thank Joe and the Conservative Party for bringing this motion, which will be referred to Cabinet, as there are impacts on this motion which are outside the Council's existing policy and budget framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hazelton. We'll now go on to 9B, which is Councillor Rachel Carnac to propose.
Yeah, sorry about this, but there we go. So second motion is Herne Bay Seafront Regeneration, which very briefly asks that the council looks at instituting a similar board system to the one that runs Whitstable Harbour so successfully and that has been brought in for the Canterbury Tales of England board, which was fundamental in ensuring that Canterbury City Council had a master plan that formed the basis to secure the levelling up bid funding of just under £20 million. We call on this council to recognise that Herne Bay would benefit from a similar driving force and strategic board to give impetus and foresight to regeneration of its seaside heritage assets from Stud Hill to Reculver, just as Whitstable Harbour Board has delivered for Whitstable and as Canterbury Tales of England Board is now for the city. The seafront is to Herne Bay as the harbour is to Whitstable, vital, historic and economically important. It is the town's focal point, providing the magnet for visitors, investment and regeneration that benefits the whole town. And the Herne Bay seafront needs significant investment. And while we have many fantastic hard-working volunteers and groups involved in different aspects of town life, much as Whitstable and Canterbury do too, it's unrealistic and unreasonable for council to believe that these groups have the means to raise the millions in investment required to undertake the capital projects required on the seafront. And again, the rest of that is there to be read and it's going to Cabinet, and I hope that we will be able to discuss that much more widely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carnott. We have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Dan Watkins. I got there. And can I ask for a response from Councillor Alan Baldock?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will again defer to the Cabinet member for the coast, because again, we take the coast incredibly seriously, and Herne Bay is very much part of our strategy and looked after with the same love and care that the rest of the district will be, I'm sure. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Rachel and Dan. I'm on record as saying that the council was incredibly disappointed not to have a chance to submit a bid for the Lough Round 3. The fund was set to support the economic and social regeneration of wider Herne Bay, much in the way that the Canterbury Lough is doing currently in the city centre. Naturally, at the time, we paused officer time and expenditure in anticipation of a successful bid. And now the position is clear. It's important that we need to reassess what we're doing, both in the long and in the short term. The proposal for a Herne Bay board will be considered by Cabinet in due course, but it's important to note, I think, that the Whitstable Harbour Board exists to oversee the operational responsibility of the council under the Port Marine Safety Code and doesn't have a wider regeneration focus in the town. In fact, the current harbour strategy talks about actions being beneficial for the harbour or dependent on the harbour. And there is some question and challenge from the High Street in particular about how you regenerate through one asset without directly affecting the areas just outside it. Similarly, the Canterbury Tales of England board is largely focused on delivering the Lough. And whilst there are discussions about its role beyond this, these aren't concluded, and we would need to agree what, in the wider conversation, would be the parity which all the district had. Essentially, if we have something in Herne Bay, why do we have something not for Tankerton? Why do we not have something for Whitstable? Where does essentially it end? Whilst it's encouraging that opposition parties agree with us that we require a strategic plan to economic regeneration, it's confusing as to why the previous administration cut the economic development team rather than invest in it, U-turned on the Tivoli site and closed the Neptune co-working hub with little engagement. When given the chance, the previous administration prioritised a changing places toilet at Reculver and at Canterbury, although a fully accessible toilet does exist at the Herons Leisure Centre. And the lack of investment in our heritage assets, particularly the clock tower, is a result of years of poor property management, which we do essentially need to come up with a long-term solution for. The new Herne Bay Plaza in time seems to be to most people an unwanted Christmas present from Kent County Council, and not something that necessarily people asked for. In a town where public squares by the clock tower, we have public squares in the clock tower and the swimming pool, it's not clear why we needed another one, nor why Kent Council don't consider closing the road only in the summer season when the use of the square could be better guaranteed. Just so councillors are aware, the council undertook work on the Tivoli site to protect the existing planning permission, and enabling works are ongoing, whilst we're still well within schedule to release the land for housing by March 2025. A new specialist regeneration post has been recruited to and is progressing an options analysis on Hampton Leisure as part of a wider review of coastal concessions. The £300,000 of capital funding for the pier substructure will be spent in 24-25, and repairs to the timber deck are scheduled for January. The 40k mentioned was allocated specifically for the development of the Lough bid and allocated from reserves. So reallocating this money would require a new formal decision. Although the Shared Prosperity Fund is currently being used to prepare us for future government funding rounds and applications. I look forward to discussing the options available for a more strategic approach to regeneration of the coast with coastal members and in preparing a paper for Cabinet.
Thank you, Councillor. And we're now not debating, as you have recognised that they will both be going to Cabinet. So we're now on item number 10, and that's changes to memberships of committees and subcommittees for the remainder of the council year. And can I invite Councillor Alan Baldock to propose?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Changes to membership committees. So the First one, I don't think it's in your papers, but we were going to put Chris Cornell on the licensing committee. We're not going to do that now. So it's not a good practice to put cabinet members on licensing, and I think we just need to try to recruit some more councillors onto licensing. So I think we stick with our doing it properly, and we're not going to do that. So, but the following members will be added to the Community Governance Review Task and Finishing Group. So that's the one that Councillor Flanagan was talking about earlier on. So these are the people that we have allocated to that group. For Labour, there's going to be Councillor Chris Cornell, Councillor Harry Mackenzie and Councillor Naomi Smith. The Lib Dems will be Councillor Michael Dixie and Peter Old. Claire Turnbull will be there for the Greens, and Conservative Councillor Ian Stockley and Rachel Carnack will be on the on that. So that we've just done that. That saves ground round again. I'm sure that's acceptable. So so we're all happy with those groups. So I would request that you do support that, and we need to vote. Thank you.
Can we have a seconder?
Yeah. Do you want to...
Michael?
Yeah, please, Michael. That'd be really good. Thank you.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And recorded vote. And Andrea, please.
And that vote is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Now we go on to item 11, which is the council minutes. And can I invite Councillor Alan Baldock to propose?
Okay. So I submit for receipt and adoption the minutes of the council meeting, full council meeting that was on the 19th of October and the 26th of October.
Thank you. And we've got a seconder.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. And recorded vote, please.
And that vote is carried with 36 in favour and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. And can I invite Tricia Marshall, Head of Paid Service?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just to say on item 12, which is about receiving the minutes of the meeting specified, just a reminder, the minutes will be dealt with in turn, and the Lord Mayor will first invite the relevant chair to propose receipt of the minutes and to ask for a seconder for the proposal. The purpose of this item is to formally receive each set of minutes and respond to any questions arising from those minutes. To be clear, councillors are not voting on whether these are a true record of each meeting. That is for the relevant committee to decide. Councillors are permitted to debate the content of the minutes if they wish. The minutes can be received by general assent, but if there's any disagreement, a recorded vote will be taken. And in the future, if a meeting is cancelled, it will be listed here together with the reason for the cancellation. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Tricia. So we'll go to the first one, which is Audit Committee. Councillor Brady.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Audit Committee dated the 4th of October 2023. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And now we go to, need a general assent? Yep. Thank you very much. And Cabinet on the 6th of November, Councillor Baldock.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I submit for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Cabinet meeting on Monday, the 6th of November, pages 55 to 60. Additionally, the Cabinet meeting on Monday, the 4th of December, pages 61 to 70. That's item B and C. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you.
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Dixie. And nobody speaking. So we'll go General Assembly. Thank you very much. And now we've got Cabinet Committee, Councillor Carr Ellis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Cabinet Committee dated Thursday, 30th of November 2023. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. And General Assembly. Thank you. And we go now to overview and scrutiny. Councillor Prentice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee dated Tuesday, the 21st of November 2023. Do I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Councillor Flanagan. General assent? Thank you. And now we go to the Planning Committee and Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the Planning Committee, 17th of October 2023, pages 82 to 87. Do I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Thank you. And can we go General Assent? Yeah. And now the Scrutiny Subcommittee, Councillor Carnott.
Yeah. Can I present for approval and adoption the minutes of the Scrutiny Subcommittee on Wednesday, 22nd of November, pages 88 to 95? Do I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. Can we vote for General Assent? Thank you. And now we go to the Standards Committee and Councillor Moses.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move for receipt and adoption of the minutes of the Standard Committee meeting on the 21st of November 2023. Could I have a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. General Assent? Thank you very much. And lastly, we've got the Whitstable Harbour Board. Councillor Cornell.
I move for approval and exceptions for minutes of Whitstable Harbour Board, Friday the 13th of October, pages 99 to 104. Can I get a seconder?
Seconded, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. General Assent? Thank you. And we need now to state that the minutes of the meeting of the General Purposes Committee, 13th December 23, have been published in the agenda supplement. Can I invite Councillor Flanagan to propose these minutes?
Your Lord Mayor, I move for receipt and adoption the minutes of the General Purposes Committee held the 13th of December, pages 3 to 6 of tonight's agenda supplement. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. That concludes that item. No, General Assent. And now we're going to item 13, to receive any notice of urgent decisions made by the head of paid service under delegation. Do we have any? No. And now 14, any other urgent business to be dealt with on the night? Yes, we have one. Yes. So I'll pass it over to...
Okay, thank you, Lord Mayor. You'll see there's a supplement to the agenda, which is item 14, which is a report to council on non-attendance by a councillor. Lord Mayor, you've agreed that this item can be added as an item of urgent business.
That's right.
Yeah. The report contains a confidential appendix, so if any member wishes to refer to anything contained in the appendix, it will be necessary to exclude the press and public. Otherwise, you can take this item in public.
So everybody knows about it. They've read the supplementary and yes, okay. So if no one speaks, and I invite the leader to propose.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I propose the item as discussed, which is the extension of time for Councillor Worley until the 22nd of that's the next council meeting, due to his ill health at this present time and unable to attend this meeting following a long extended period of illness. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
Second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. And so we vote.
Unless there's any debate.
If there's no debate, anybody wants to ask? No? Thank you very much. And we'll move to the vote for the extension. Thank you.
So that vote is carried unanimously, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very, very much. And I'm sure that will be very much appreciated. And that concludes the business. And the next one is the 22nd of February, 2024. Thank you very much for your indulgence all this evening.
Well done. That was nice and smooth.
Well, where was it?
Yeah, it's good.